I want to talk about another politician, and I'm not big on politicians, but I'm big on this one. Castro Valley Pride, as you know already, this is our 8th year, but right from the beginning we had a politician that was with us from the start. He's over here sneaking up on me right now while I talk about him, so don't let him hear me. Eric Swalwell is on his 3rd term. He's on an Intelligence Committee, Judiciary Committee. His primary concerns are national security and civil rights. But I'll tell you that it's important to me because he talks about gun violence. He talks about gun violence, and I really appreciate that because there's too many kids being killed in our country. And I don't know about these committees, but I know we have a problem with gun violence in this nation, and that's really important to me. He also stands in for civil rights for the LGBT community. Just like with Nate Marley, some of our funding comes from Eric Swalwell's office, and we can't do this without him. We had a Pulse shooting. Eric was right out in our community immediately, helping us with that and putting that together. He's a great guy. Proud to call him friend. Ladies and gentlemen, Eric Swalwell.
Happy Pride, Castro Valley. Happy Pride. Thank you, Billy and Austin and the team who has worked so hard every year to make sure that this festival, this celebration is bigger and bigger and reflects the love that we have in our hearts for every single person in our community. I also love just telling people that I get to represent in Congress the area where Rachel Maddow grew up. And that's pretty cool. This is the high school that she went to. And she was ahead of her time back when she gave a speech as the valedictorian at her graduation about making sure that it was more of an inclusive community. But you are living out what she saw back then, which was that we are loving people, we take care of each other, we have pride. But boy, that idea is at risk right now with the wrecking ball that we have at the White House. A wrecking ball to all of our freedoms. The freedom of speech, the freedom of worship, the freedom of love. All of those are at risk. And I recently visited a community college, and a 19-year-old asked me, she said, Congressman, after the inauguration, I went to my first protest, and I went to the Women's March. How many of you went to the Women's March? She said, Congressman, after the Muslim ban was put in place, I went to the airport to welcome refugees. And then she told me, Congressman, after my health care was at risk of being taken away, I went to my first town hall. But then she looked at me and said, be real with me, Congressman. Does any of this really make a difference? And I thought that's a pretty good question from a young person who, in the first time in her life, sees that who's at the White House, who runs Congress, that affects her life, her freedoms, her dreams. Does it make a difference? Castro Valley, does it make a difference if she shows up? Yeah. And you're showing up here today. And I'll tell you that it's not just the violence or the hatred or the discrimination that we see against the LGBTQ community. Because if a child is separated from his mother at the border, that affects a gay American. If a Muslim is denied entry into our country because of who they are, that affects a transgender American. If there's discrimination anywhere, it affects all of us everywhere. And so to that young woman, I think the best thing we can do over the next 100 days is to show her that in the history of America, all of the changes that have ever occurred have been because young people have shown up. We're a country of addition and multiplication, not subtraction and division. We started out with the founders saying, e pluribus unum, out of many one. But we weren't perfect. We had slavery. Women couldn't vote. Men who didn't own land and weren't property owners, they couldn't vote either, but we added freedoms along the way. We ended slavery by fighting a war. Women took to the streets to get the right to vote. Martin Luther King and John Lewis and Malcolm X marched and led us all to the ballot box for civil rights. And you showed up after 2008 when Prop 8 was put in place, and you talked to your friends and your neighbors and your priests and your police officers and your firefighters, and you told them love is love no matter who you are. And we changed that too. We've always added freedoms in America. So we're not going back now. We're not subtracting freedoms. We're not dividing people. So we need to make sure that that young woman and each young person in our community who has not yet believed that we can make a difference, that we move their feet from the town squares to the town hall, and as Dr. King called upon all of us to do, march on the ballot boxes. Castro Valley, this November, vote for love. Vote for pride. And vote for our freedom. Thank you so much, Castro Valley. Happy Pride.
Ladies and gentlemen, one more round of applause for Congressman Swalwell. Thank you so much, sir. Distinguished member of the House.